You think financial collapse happens overnight, that one day everything is fine, and the next your bank account is empty, your credit cards are maxed out, and bills are piling up. But that's not how it works. Financial chaos doesn't announce itself. It builds quietly in the background while you're too busy to notice. By the time you realize something is wrong, you're already deep in trouble. Most people can pinpoint when their financial life fell apart. They remember the job loss, the emergency, expense, or the failed business. But the truth is, those events didn't cause the collapse, they just revealed it. The real damage started much earlier, in small, invisible moments that felt harmless at the time. The point of financial rupture doesn't begin with a crisis. It begins with decisions that seem reasonable, behaviors that feel normal, and patterns that everyone around you follows. And because everyone else is doing the same thing, you never question it. You don't see the rupture forming because it looks exactly like regular life. This is the most dangerous part. Financial chaos doesn't feel like chaos at first. It feels like control. You're paying your bills, you're managing, you have credit available. You can still buy what you need. Nothing seems broken. But underneath that surface, the foundation is cracking. And by the time the collapse happens, it's too late to prevent it. You can only react. Understanding where financial rupture truly begins changes everything. It gives you the ability to see the early signs before they become disasters. It shifts you from damage control to prevention. And that shift is the difference between living in constant financial stress and building a life where money works for you instead of against you. So where does it actually start? What is the real beginning of financial chaos that nobody notices until it's too late? It starts the moment you stop paying attention to where your money goes. Not when you overspend, not when you take on debt, not when an emergency hits. It starts when spending becomes automatic, when you stop questioning purchases, when you swipe, tap, or click without thinking. That's the rupture point. That's where control ends and chaos begins. You might think you're in control because you're not broke yet. You still have income. You're covering expenses. But control isn't about having money right now. It's about knowing exactly what you're doing with it. And most people have no idea. They couldn't tell you how much they spent last week, let alone last month. They don't know their average grocery bill, their real entertainment spending, or how much actually goes toward things that matter. This lack of awareness creates a gap. Income comes in and expenses go out, but there's no visibility into the process. You assume everything is fine because nothing has exploded yet. But that gap is where financial rupture lives. It's where money disappears without explanation. It's where small leaks become floods. It's where one bad month turns into 6 because you never saw it coming. And here's the thing, this happens to people at every income level. You can make 6 figures and still be one emergency away from financial collapse if you're not paying attention. You can have a modest income and be more financially stable than someone earning twice as much, simply because you know where every dollar goes. Income doesn't determine financial health. Awareness does. The second part of the rupture point is even more subtle. It's the belief that you'll handle it later. You know you should track your spending. You know you should have a budget. You know you should review your finances regularly. But it feels tedious. It feels unnecessary right now because nothing is on fire, so you put it off. You tell yourself you'll get serious about it next month, after this busy period when things calm down. But things never calm down. Life doesn't pause so you can organize your money. And every month you delay is another month the rupture deepens. Small problems that could have been fixed with minor adjustments become major issues that require drastic action. A spending habit that could have been corrected early becomes a pattern that defines your financial life. This delay isn't laziness, it's a psychological trap. Your brain is wired to focus on immediate threats, not slow-building ones. A deadline at work feels urgent. A fight with a partner feels urgent. A leaking faucet feels urgent. But gradual financial decline doesn't trigger that same alarm. It's too slow, too quiet, too easy to rationalize. So you ignore it until it becomes impossible to ignore. By the time most people take their finances seriously, they're already in crisis mode. They're reacting to consequences instead of preventing them. They're paying off debt instead of avoiding it. They're rebuilding instead of protecting what they had. And while recovery is always possible, it's infinitely harder than prevention. The third element of financial rupture is lifestyle creep. This is the silent killer of financial stability, and almost no one sees it happening. Lifestyle creep is when your spending rises to match your income, no matter how much you make. You get a raise and suddenly you're eating out more. You get a bonus and you upgrade your car. You pay off one bill and you take on another. Your income grows, but your savings don't. Your financial security doesn't improve. You just get better at spending. This feels natural because it is natural. You work hard, you deserve to enjoy your money, and upgrading your life feels like progress. But lifestyle creep is a trap disguised as success. It keeps you running in place financially. You're always earning just enough to cover your expenses, with nothing left over for real security. And because your expenses grow with your income, you never build a buffer. One disruption and everything falls apart. The real rupture happens when people mistake comfort for security. Comfortable means you can afford your current lifestyle. Secure means you can sustain it through disruption. Most people are comfortable, but not secure. They live in a way that requires everything to go right. No job loss, no health crisis, no unexpected expense, and when life inevitably disrupts that balance, the foundation crumbles. Here's where the awareness gap becomes dangerous. Because you don't track your spending, you don't notice lifestyle creep. Because you don't notice lifestyle creep, you don't realize how fragile your situation is. Because you don't realize how fragile it is, you don't take action until it's too late. This is the cycle that leads to financial collapse, and it starts long before the collapse actually happens. Now let's talk about the mental blocks that keep people trapped in this cycle, even when they know something is wrong. Because awareness alone doesn't fix the problem. You can know you're overspending and still do it. You can know you should save and still not save. You can know you're heading toward trouble and still take no action. Why? The first mental block is the illusion of recovery. You tell yourself that you'll catch up later. Next month you'll be more careful. Next year you'll save. When you get that promotion, when you finish paying off that one thing, when life slows down, then you'll get serious. This illusion keeps you passive because it convinces you that the problem is temporary and self-correcting. It's not. Financial problems don't fix themselves, they compound. The second block is comparison. You look around and see that everyone else is living the same way. Everyone has debt. Everyone is stressed about money. Everyone lives paycheck to paycheck, so you assume it's normal. You assume it's just how life is. And because it's normal, you don't question it. You don't fight it. You accept it as inevitable. But normal doesn't mean healthy. And just because everyone is struggling doesn't mean you have to. The third block is shame. Money is deeply personal, and admitting you're struggling feels like admitting failure. So people hide it. They keep up appearances. They maintain a lifestyle they can't afford because the alternative is admitting they're not where they thought they'd be. This shame prevents honest conversations, prevents asking for help, and prevents taking the first step toward change. The fourth block is complexity. Personal finance feels overwhelming. There's too much information, too many options, too many experts saying different things. So people freeze. They don't know where to start, so they don't start at all. They wait for clarity that never comes, while their financial situation continues to deteriorate. These blocks are powerful, but they're not insurmountable. The key is recognizing that financial rupture doesn't require a dramatic failure. It's not about making one catastrophic mistake. It's about 100 small decisions that slowly erode your foundation. And if small decisions can create the rupture, small decisions can also prevent it. So what do you actually do? How do you stop financial chaos before it starts? First, you track everything. Not forever, not with complex systems. Just for 1 month, write down every single thing you spend money on, every coffee, every subscription, every impulse purchase, every bill. You're not trying to change anything yet. You're just trying to see the truth. Because until you know where your money is actually going, you can't make informed decisions about it. This step feels trivial, but it's not. Most people are shocked when they see their real spending. They thought they were spending reasonably, but the numbers tell a different story. They thought they were in control, but the data shows otherwise. This shock is the beginning of real change, because you can't fix a problem you don't see. Second, you identify the leaks. Once you have a month of data, look for patterns. Where is money disappearing without adding real value to your life? It's not about eliminating everything you enjoy. It's about finding the spending that doesn't even register as enjoyable, the subscriptions you forgot about, the convenience purchases that became habits, the impulse buys that seemed important in the moment but mean nothing a week later. These leaks are where financial rupture grows. They're small enough to ignore individually, but significant enough to matter collectively. Cutting them doesn't require sacrifice, it requires awareness, and once you see them clearly, eliminating them becomes easy. Third, you create a gap between income and spending. This is the foundation of financial stability. If you spend everything you make, you're fragile. One disruption and you're in crisis. But if you consistently spend less than you earn, even by a small amount, you build resilience. You create room to breathe. You give yourself options. This gap doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't require extreme frugality or deprivation. It just requires intentionality. It requires saying no to things that don't matter so you can say yes to things that do. It requires choosing security over comfort, even when comfort feels more appealing in the moment. Fourth, you build a buffer. Even a small emergency fund changes everything. It turns crises into inconveniences. It prevents debt. It gives you the ability to handle life without financial panic. Start with $500, then $1,000, then 1 month of expenses. You're not trying to retire early or become wealthy. You're trying to stop living on the edge. This buffer is the difference between chaos and control. Without it, every unexpected expense becomes a catastrophe. With it, life's disruptions are manageable, and once you experience that shift, you'll never go back. Fifth, you stay consistent. Financial stability isn't built in a month. It's built through repeated small actions over time. Track your spending regularly. Review your budget monthly. Adjust when things change. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. It's about making better decisions more often than you make bad ones. Consistency is the antidote to rupture. Rupture happens when you stop paying attention. Stability happens when attention becomes routine. And routine doesn't require motivation or willpower. It just requires structure. A simple system that you follow regardless of how you feel. Now here's what most people misunderstand about financial stability. They think it's about restriction, about saying no to everything, about living a smaller life. But that's not what it is at all. Financial stability is about freedom. It's about not being controlled by money. It's about making choices based on what you want, not what you can barely afford. When you live at the rupture point, where spending is automatic and awareness is absent, you're not free. You're reactive. You're constantly managing consequences. You're stressed, anxious, and 1 bad month away from disaster. That's not freedom. That's survival. Real freedom comes from knowing exactly where you stand financially, from having a buffer that protects you, from making spending decisions consciously instead of impulsively, from building a life that doesn't require everything to go perfectly. That's what financial stability creates, not restriction, liberation. The people who achieve this don't have some special advantage. They're not smarter or more disciplined. They just started paying attention before the rupture became a collapse. They saw the early signs and acted on them. They built awareness, then turned that awareness into action, then turned that action into habit. And here's the truth nobody wants to hear. If you're not actively preventing financial rupture, you're passively creating it. Neutrality doesn't exist in personal finance. You're either building stability or eroding it. You're either aware or blind. You're either in control or pretending to be. The choice isn't between ease and effort. It's between small, manageable effort now or massive, overwhelming effort later. It's between prevention and crisis management. And prevention is always easier. Most financial advice focuses on what to do after things go wrong, how to pay off debt, how to recover from bankruptcy, how to rebuild after collapse. That advice has value, but it's reactive. It's addressing consequences instead of causes. What matters more is understanding where the rupture begins so you can stop it before it spreads. And that beginning is simple. It's the moment you stop tracking, the moment you stop questioning, the moment you let spending become automatic. That's where chaos starts. That's the invisible line between control and collapse. You cross that line gradually. One untracked expense, one impulse purchase, 1 month where you don't review your finances. It doesn't feel significant in the moment, but those moments accumulate. They form patterns, and patterns form your financial reality. The good news is that you can cross back. You can regain awareness. You can rebuild control. You can prevent the rupture from becoming a collapse. But only if you act now. Only if you stop waiting for the perfect moment and start with what you can do today. Track 1 week of spending, just 1 week. See where your money actually goes. That's the first step. That's how you begin to close the awareness gap and stop financial chaos before it takes over your life. Because the rupture isn't coming. It's already here. It started the moment you stop paying attention. And it will continue growing until you decide to look at it directly and do something about it. You don't need a dramatic financial overhaul. You don't need to become a different person. You just need to see the truth, acknowledge where you are, and make one small decision that moves you towards stability instead of chaos. That decision doesn't guarantee success, but it guarantees you're no longer passively drifting toward collapse. And that shift from passive to active, from blind to aware, from reactive to intentional, is where real financial change begins. This isn't about perfection, it's about direction. And right now, your direction is determined by whether you're paying attention or not. So pay attention, track your spending, see the patterns, identify the leaks, build the gap, create the buffer, stay consistent. Do that and the rupture stops growing. Do that and financial chaos loses its grip. Do that and you shift from surviving to building, from reacting to choosing, from fragile to secure. That's where it starts, not with more income, not with a lucky break, not with perfect discipline. It starts with awareness, with seeing the rupture before it becomes a collapse, with acting on what you see before it's too late. The question isn't whether you can do this. The question is whether you will, whether you'll stop waiting for things to get easier and start making them easier through your own actions, whether you'll keep pretending everything is fine or face the truth and do something about it. Financial rupture is invisible until it's not. And by the time it's visible, the damage is done. So don't wait for visibility. Don't wait for the collapse. Look now, act now, build now. Because the real beginning of financial chaos isn't a crisis. It's the moment before the crisis when you had the chance to prevent it and didn't. Don't let that moment pass.